Welcome back. The Cisco India Summit began in Jaipur this year with a heightened emphasis on cybersecurity. A study released by Cisco has revealed that just 24% of organizations surveyed in India have the mature level of readiness needed to be resilient against modern cybersecurity risks. Ashmit Kumar caught up with the Cisco top brass on bolstering cybersecurity and their growth plans.
Give us a sense, because while we're here in Jaipur, you've also in fact released a report which releases some startling numbers in terms of readiness and preparedness for cybersecurity threats. So tell us, as people go hybrid, as organizations go hybrid, how big of a concern is that, one? And two, are organizations acknowledging it and are they prepared for it?
Yeah, so the study that we are releasing, we're launching it here. It's not an India report, it's a worldwide report. So we surveyed as part of the Cyber Security Readiness Index. We did a study across 6,700 cyber professionals in 27 countries. Now, the India data is rather interesting, right? 80% of Indian organizations that were surveyed as part of that study said that they had faced a security breach in the last 2 years. And just over 50% of them said that the cost of returning to normalcy was over $500,000. For 14% of them, over $1 million. So, and this is, you have to keep in perspective, this is, when people give out these numbers, they're usually talking about the cost of returning to normalcy. And what is usually not accounted is the long-term cost of reputation loss or data loss. So is it a big problem? Yes, security resilience is a big concern for enterprises and organizations more broadly, and it's not just businesses, right?
One number I'd like to call your attention to was from your very report, the global report, which also has the India chapter to it, which talks about only 24% of the Indian companies being fully geared for facing these challenges. How worrying is that number?
It is very worrying. I mean, it is very worrying. And if you look at, I mean, there are three transitions that all organizations, and when I say organization, I even mean government institutions, right, and healthcare facilities and such. Three things are happening, right? Firstly, a lot of the conversation around devices, right? There is an IoT analytics study that says that 27 billion devices will get connected by 2025. Now you have to expect that something similar will happen in India as well. Then there is a human aspect. You know, as everything gets connected, everybody is an insider. And this is the worrying factor, that companies in India are increasingly calling out malicious insider activity. And again, almost 50% of organizations we talk to are reporting malicious insider activity. That is actually a little bit higher than the global standard. And hybrid work is not going anywhere. What is going everywhere is the perimeter of the enterprise, which used to be a fixed boundary, but is now fluid and going where the users are or to where the access is. So security has to follow. So all of these transitions, if you notice, are opening up gateways into unprecedented and very unique security challenges.
Great. Let's now talk about one area that is big in terms of a worry for a lot of people looking at the next 12 to 18 months, and that's essentially the big R word. We were just discussing, it's almost like a placebo whether we're talking ourselves into one. But on a more serious note, talking about tech companies in particular, we've seen a rout globally. There are concerns in terms of what the next 12 to 18 months hold. There have been layoffs as well. Cisco, of course, was also compelled to issue pink slips. Give us an indication of, one, this global picture, how it's looking to affect you, and how India for you is positioned as a part of this dynamic global environment.
Yeah. So we actually, we announced a restructuring, Ashmit. That is correct. But we also did say that at the end of the fiscal year, we'll be the same number of people as when we started the year. And that is because technology is changing and we need to continuously lift and shift our people into new areas of focus for the company. I do not want to speak for some of our peers in the industry, but I suspect they are also doing some of the same, right? And they're also trying to optimize and get prepared for a new world or a no-normal world. As far as the India market goes, I think India is quite resilient. Now, is there a degree of caution and scrutiny in the technology space as regards spends? Certainly, yes. But are people holding back spending money in critical areas in tech? No. And I think the reason for that is COVID has taught us better than anything that technical debt is not a great thing for companies to live with. And it certainly is not a formula for success in the long term, mid to long term. So scrutiny and caution, yes. Blocking spends, no, we don't say that.
One focus area that we have at CNBC-TV18 is broadening the conversation about gender diversity and gender inclusion. And towards that end, we recently had launched this conclave and this campaign called Future Female Forward. The idea being more inclusion of women, more participation by women. You're a woman leader yourself, right at the helm of the company, heading the India-SAARC operations. What I want to ask of you is that while we're beginning to see more women in boardrooms, more women in executive roles, there's not so much participation at the workforce level. For the IT sector itself, I think the number in terms of women inclusion is, we mentioned, mid-30s, while that is significantly above the national average. What can be done at the ground level to encourage more women participation at the workforce level?
So, Ashmit, thank you first of all for that conversation. I think it's a very critical, it has now become a critical conversation. India's dream of becoming a $5 trillion economy cannot happen unless we up the participation of women in the workforce. And frankly, COVID has not been kind to women. Right? The equity gap, now the UN says the path to true equity will take, we thought 130 odd years, which it was before COVID, was bad. But then now the UN is talking about 300 plus years. So thank you for that conversation, very, very critical one to have. The IT industry in India, while the mid-30s may not look as a true representation of our society, it is a poster child in many ways, because the tech industry worldwide is not at that level of representation for women. What the IT industry has done very well, and maybe there's a model, perhaps there's a model there for other industries to follow, is the intake. It's solved the intake problem. So if you look at women coming into the workforce, women and men coming into the workforce early in career is almost equal in most companies. The problem has always been to solve for the middle. Life events happen to women: marriage, maternity, caregiving, and then the choice. And women want to do justice to those roles. I think they have a right to do justice to those roles. At that point, they fall away from the workforce. Bringing them back has to be a much more active. So intake is important. So getting entry-level women into the workforce is important. Getting the middle sorted out is important. And unless the middle is sorted out, you know, the pyramid is anyway the shape in every organization. So if you lose the middle, then the women stepping up into leadership and then from there into board positions, it's going to be a pipe dream.
Look, I think artificial intelligence would span all of the different areas, that from the way you leverage it to make sense of your data, to the way you leverage it for driving operational excellence. And even in the area of security that we spoke about, there are so many pieces that come on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So for organizations, they need to automate all of this. So we would see application of AI from a day two perspective. Sure. You'll see a lot of innovation.
So in terms of the $160 million, that's an in-kind value contribution that we've contributed to the program over the past 24 years in India. At a global level, since inception, it's $4.5 billion in-kind value contribution. And relative to cybersecurity, we all know that with more and more people becoming connected and with the billions of devices through IoT that are getting connected to the internet, that creates tremendous opportunity, but it also creates significant vulnerabilities. And so it's incredibly important to train individuals in cybersecurity skills. And we're doing just that in India. And we have committed and announced a new goal, a goal to reach 500,000 students over the next 3 years.
Well, there you have it. Here's a quick summary of the Cisco India Summit 2023. And there are three key takeaways. Number one, cybersecurity is clearly in focus. There's a growing understanding of the risks involved, but not enough is being done at the moment to address them, and that could be something that costs Indian organizations and the economy dearly. Number two, Cisco admits that it is not an exception to the global drought in tech companies, the recession, the global headwinds, or the layoffs that have been reported. However, it has expressed confidence that over the next 12 to 18 months, while the IT spends of companies may be under more scrutiny, it has shown no signs of ebbing. And number three, Cisco admits that as far as India's $5 trillion economy target is concerned, it is not possible towards more women participation, and towards that end, Cisco is trying to do its bit for more skilling as well as gender inclusion. In Jaipur, Ashmit Kumar.
All right, it's time for a short break, but when we return, we'll get you a special conversation with the Director General Asia Pacific of Airports Council on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The three-day Kappa India Aviation Summit wraps up today. Leaders from the aviation industry are upbeat on India's prospects. One such leader is Stefano Baronsky, the Director General Asia Pacific of Airports Council International. He expects India's airports to see rapid growth.
In the medium and long term, India will grow faster than the world and faster than the average in Asia. India will be growing by 6% per year, and this is a huge challenge for airports in the future, but is also a beautiful problem because, of course, there are opportunities to grow.
And what is the long-term outlook?
The long-term outlook is to have India contributing by about 10% to the growth that we foresee from 2019 to 2041.
So you see India growing by 20%.
6% per year.
6% per year
Yes.
and 20% in 2041 as compared to 2019.
6% per year with a contribution to the additional growth from 2019 to 2041 by 10%.
I'll ask about the congestion that many metro airports in India are experiencing. What reasons would you attribute for this congestion, and do you see a similar situation in other airports internationally?
The level of growth in traffic in India is massive, much faster than in other airports in the world. And until 2019, what we experienced was airports having to build, and after 4 or 5 years already being in the necessity to add additional infrastructure for a good quality of the service. So the Indian case is very peculiar. And of course we have to make sure that the regulator allows the airport to invest as much as needed according to the forecast. This is a sector which is highly regulated. The level of the charge is set by the authorities, so it's based on that the airport operator is in the capacity to recover its costs. And these are normally long-term investment.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of News Center. News continues on the other side. Stay tuned.